This is something I find a lot of mixers don't grasp until they reach a certain level. So I'm going to hook you up with a couple tips today that maybe you could use on your stuff. Number one, the way you change a sound from section to section can really change how much impact it has. So, for a bass, for example, don't look at it like you need your bass to sound the same from the verse to the chorus, through the bridge, the post chorus. Most great songs don't work like that. I talked about on that 90s video I made a little while back, people using parallel EQ in order to get a part to sound different from one part to the next. But there's also just something like a chorus effect. You don't necessarily want to hear a chorus effect front and center, loud and clear on a bass. It does work very well, though, when it's in a dense mix. So if you have a song that starts out kind of sparse, or maybe it's just bass and drums or something, keep your chorus sound out of that or very low in the mix. Then turn it on or make it a little louder, and only in the chorus. So I'm automating things like this all over the place when I'm mixing. So I'll do it not only on a bass, but I'll do it on a acoustic guitar, for example. Sometimes a flanger sound or a little bit of something. It could be compression, it could be saturation, it could be chorus, and you'll turn on some sort of an effect while a part gets busier where now you're not distracted by it. Recently, I was mixing a song in which the acoustic guitar sounded like it wasn't the best mic used to record it, but that could sound good. Often, like, the worst mic you use, like an SM57 on acoustics, can sometimes sound very well if it's placed right. If it's placed right over the sound hole and there's a lot of boominess in it, that's usually the worst placement for a mic on an acoustic guitar. But, somewhere at the where the neck meets the guitar is usually a good place, and then I find back behind the sound hole is also a decent place. So if I mic it with 2 mics, that's usually where I go to. But it's just from guessing, checking, trying, experimenting, things like that. But the point is, that guitar in what I was given didn't sound particularly good. So as a result, I had to use it most of the song. The thing was going through the whole song. But how do I use it in order to make it sound great? Add a little bit of chorus effect when the band is playing full out, and then there's a part in the song where the band drops out. So it's just like an intimate verse vocal kind of thing with the acoustic. I take the chorus sound out of that part. So just manipulating that makes a huge difference. Think about this for vocals. When you have vocals in a dense part of a song, you might want a little reverb to give it life, a little plate sound, a little something. But in the parts of the song where it's super intimate, it will make it feel more intimate, like the singer's coming forward right into your face if you take out those effects. Like, that's the best thing I could tell you is when you want a song to get intimate, you remove the effects. When you want to give it depth, you're adding a little bit of effects. So this push-pull is what separates the top guys from the people who are just starting out. More of the top guys are automating things like this because they're changing the scenery. They're changing the depth of field by doing this sort of thing. And don't think about it just in terms of this is the verse, this is the chorus. A lot of times the tail ends of choruses or, the tail ends of verses, like there's moments, it's all song dependent. This is why your ear and your taste comes into play so much. A lot of times you need to make those changes before the part ends, because if you make it when the part ends, there's too much of an abrupt switch that it feels weird. The goal is to make it not feel weird, to make it feel like it was supposed to be there. So this is the same thing that's super helpful on drums, kick, snare especially. You may not think you want your kick to have verb on it. In a dense part of a song, it will sound thin and small if you got a lot of electric guitars and a lot of sort of saturated noise taking up a lot of space. The kick is going to sound small. So if you give the kick some length, it will carry and it will fill out the space. And a lot of times you give it length with some sort of an ambient kind of sample. So it's the same thing on snare. You won't need as much of it in a part of the song where it's just drums and bass, for example. So you should be thinking, where can I automate different things like this in order to make parts stand out? And one more tip, this is that Eric Valentine thing, and I may show this to you on a mix in an upcoming video because I do this all the time, but your filters. if you have a verse to a chorus, it doesn't hurt to use a little high pass, a little low pass, tighten everything up a little bit. So where am I doing this? I'm doing it on guitars, I'm doing it on bass, I'm often doing it on even like a thing like vocals to create kind of a sense of like less low end, less high end. It tucks it all in, and it doesn't have to be much. Sometimes I'll move it 20 hertz, like from the bass, let's say, could be high passed all the way up to like 60 hertz in the verse, and then goes down to about 25 or 30, maybe 40 or something in the chorus. So in other words, there's no magic here, but the point is that movement. As soon as a part changes where you want impact makes a big difference, especially on guitars, especially on the high end of guitars, especially if it's like a clean or, has some fizz on it on the top. Just by rounding it, it'll sound very kinda old school, console, like, darker, and then all of a sudden, opening it up brings life. Just by bringing that life back to the top end of it, so much can happen there, and there's all sorts of ways I'll do this, like, if I wanna keep a low pass filter or a high pass filter, maybe I'll wanna keep that on the whole time, so I just add another instance of the EQ, and that's automated, so that one of the things can stay on the song the entire time, and the other one is doing the on and off. So, there's hundreds of ways to do this stuff, but these are incredibly helpful tips, so play with these because it really couldn't hurt your mixes, I'm telling you. Whenever people think, "Oh, but then the verse is gonna sound, not as hi-fi, it's gonna sound weird." It's like, that's what makes great songs, in my opinion, great mixes. That's what brings the emotion out of a mix. We get used to whatever we're listening to. That's what the human ear does. So if you play something that sounds good, but it sounds smaller in a verse, your brain's not thinking this sounds small. What your brain's thinking is this sounds good. That it just goes to that. Then when the chorus happens and it opens up, you didn't know it was going to go there, and that open element just opens up everything, but you didn't even know that that area was there. That's what happens. Your brain sort of gets used to wherever it is. That's why Michael Brower's biggest thing for how to make a chorus feel bigger, make the verse feel smaller. That's the answer. You have nothing dark if you don't have bright. You have nothing bright if you have nothing dark. You have nothing dry if everything's dry. You need some dry, some wet, some dark, some light. You need all of it. So this stuff's very helpful. And think about this in the same way with even like compression, for example. You could like leave compression kind of, a little, you could squash things with compression and then unsquash them in a different part of the song to create a change. Like, or vice versa. You could, I mean, there's so many instances I can think of it going either way without knowing what the song sounds like and what I want from it. I don't know, but these are all tools that you use to create better moments than leaving just a static mix run through. And there's no right or wrong way. Every mixer works completely different. It's all preference. So figure out what you like. Hopefully some of this stuff helps. If you guys have other tips, I know you do, throw some in the comments. I'm sure there's other stuff people do similar to this. I appreciate it. Like button, subscribe if you haven't. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. Take it easy.